My favourite books tend to change a lot, and I think that's a good thing, because there are many, many pleasures in reading. It's a complex form of enjoyment and enlightenment and reflection, and I think part of that enjoyment is that there are always new voices, new books that are always crossing your path. And I think if a book is really good, you kind of fall in love with it for that period when you're reading it. So for that moment, it's your favourite book. So myself, I started with poetry, specifically a Welsh poet called R.S. Thomas, who, although he was very different to me when I first read him, I was 17 years old, I was playing rugby, he was an 80-year-old priest in North Wales. But there was something in the sparseness and the visual nature of his work. He was writing about a people who were these hill farmers who were sparse of speech, who I could see reflected in the farmers where I lived in South Wales, and in the landscape where I lived as well. He was writing big existential poetry. And I think, actually, when you're a teenager, that's what you're thinking about. Why are we here? Is there a God? What comes next? What does it mean to be good? So he really appealed to me. Since then, some of my other favourite writers might be someone like Keith Douglas, a wonderful Second World War poet who was tragically killed at the age of just 24. But before that, he fought as a tank commander all the way through the Western Desert. And really, I always feel his work, his poetry, had to grow to fit that situation. And if no one's read him, you really should read Keith Douglas. Really important influence on people like Ted Hughes. In terms of novels, I think someone like Graham Greene is an extraordinary novelist of ideas, but yet keeps you turning the pages. I've been on a big sort of American reading session recently, so I've read all of the work of Richard Yates and James Salter. In terms of sports books, I should say that for Calon, I found myself going to American sports writers a lot because they have a tradition of literary sports writing. We tend to have a stronger tradition of either journalism or we write novels about sport. But in America, they have literary non-fiction books. So a couple I really would recommend would be Norman Mailer, The Fight. So he followed Muhammad Ali on his route towards the Rumble in the Jungle, and that's a fantastic book about boxing. But then also a book called Paper Lion by George Plimpton, who he sort of took what I did one step further. He actually trained with the Detroit Lions and actually played a match for them. And that's an incredible insider's book about American football. But it was the way they wrote those books, the way that they made them read like novels, that really interested me.